I've told you my deepest, darkest secrets. I've shown you exactly what people are capable of doing because I can offer you this. If I didn't pay the price for the things we already knew I did, I'm certainly not going to pay the price for the things I didn't do.
How much of it is true and how much is exaggeration when it comes to his reputation? What was the outcome of the trials that were held against him? Is he about to return to the industry after a long time in the shadows? Was he involved in vile schemes aimed at silencing his critics? What about those who claim that the actor ended up blending in with one of his own creations? That's what we're going to talk about in this report about that and many other things. Production companies fought for his participation in films. His name was synonymous with artistic excellence and he was considered one of the best living actors. Awards poured in. About his work and his time on the small screen, he only pointed out the obvious. He was destined to become a legend. However, when he was reaching the peak of his career, when viewers had fallen under the spell of the last and terrible character he had played, dark accusations fell upon him as if it were a broken spell. Everyone began to see in the statements and actions of this man once admired clear evidence that he was a ruthless person. There were even theories woven that claimed the man was behind the mysterious deaths that happened to his accusers. Today we will delve into all the nuances and corners of the Kevin Spacey case. But before we begin, I'd like you to tell me, how did you first learn about Kevin Spacey? With which movie? In my case, if I'm not mistaken, it was Seven, which I watched on Video Home System many years ago, back in the late 90s, and it was an amazing movie that absolutely fascinated me. And I had no idea who he was, but I remember his character really captivated me. Afterwards, I did see him in a bunch of movies and series, but well, that's how I first got to know him. And now I want you to tell me how you got to know him and if you know about this case that we're going to talk about today. What information do you have to share down here? So I invite you to do that, leave your like, also subscribe if you haven't done it yet, and turn on notifications. Alright, let's get started. The movie Control is an independent British thriller that will be filmed in 2023 and stars Lauren Metcalf and Mark Hampton. Although it stands out as a promising film, the truth is that until recently it gained attention in various specialized media for a particular reason. It could be the first project in which Kevin Spacey will participate after years of being cancelled. According to reports, the actor will not appear physically on screen, but will instead provide the voice of a blackmailer who threatens a British minister. The screenwriter and director of the film, Jen Falaise, admitted in several interviews that he had thought of Spacey for the role from the very beginning. And he emphasized that it is an honor for him to be able to work with an artist of such magnitude. These statements are a little less surprising, especially considering that most people in the industry had been avoiding mentioning Spacey. Some for ideological reasons, others simply to avoid being associated with him. Part of Spacey's downfall had become linked to the rise of the Me Too movement, which began in 2017, following the case of American film producer Harvey Weinstein, who is currently serving a 23-year prison sentence. Anthony Rapp, who accused Spacey of harassment, stated that part of his courage to speak out had come precisely from the inspiration that movement had given him. The accusations not only put Spacey on Hollywood's blacklist, but also resulted in several lawsuits from production companies he had commitments with. These production companies claimed that the actor's alleged behavior had caused them enormous financial losses in their already established business deals. Rapp's complaint in turn triggered several other accusations of sexual assault. When it seemed that Spacey's comeback was impossible, a New York jury ruled that the incident for which everyone had accused him had never happened. However, and despite what people might think, this is far from being the end of the controversies. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Before we get into the details of the trial, the whole conspiracy that was woven around this case, the verdict of the trial and other cases that we will also present here. It's better if we start from the beginning. July 26, 1959. In New Jersey, more precisely in South Orange, Kevin Spacey Fowler was born, the youngest of 3 siblings, all children of Thomas and Caitlin. Thomas was a technical writer, and we will come back to him later. In this story, there is much to add about the character of this person. For now, it's enough to know that Thomas's job forced the family to move several times in short periods of time. The consequences? Kevin wasn't able to form a close circle of friends, and his chances to socialize were affected more than once. Although the same thing happened to his siblings, he, being the youngest, had the worst experience. Not having a permanent place to live made the boy somewhat apathetic and skeptical about certain things. By the time the family finally managed to settle down permanently, Kevin had already developed a particular personality. Sooner rather than later, he began to show signs of his discontent. Both at school and at home, it became common to see him arguing stubbornly. His teachers didn't hesitate to label him as a troublemaker, and his parents decided that the best way to set the little black sheep straight was to send him to a military school. There, Kevin devoted himself to the routines and the strict regime for a few months. Then, his nature proved stronger, and he began to show signs of conflict. When his superiors realized that the young man was untamable and had no intention of changing, they expelled him. Due to his parents' insistence that he should study, Kevin thought it over and eventually enrolled in a school in the San Fernando Valley near Los Angeles. As expected, after his first encounter with the new subjects and new classmates. After a period in which he seemed calm, the feeling of turmoil returned to him. But, just as they say music soothes the beasts, there was something that brought a sense of relief to all those emotions that Kevin couldn't quite focus. It wasn't gentle chords that served as medicine in his case, but rather the acting classes. When Kevin met the theater group, everything changed for him, although it's fair to say that everything would change for the world of acting in general. Spacey studied acting at the Juilliard School in New York, where he shared classes with other students, who, over the years, would also stand out among the rest, as is the case with Val Kilmer. His teachers saw an innate talent in the young man, but no one was surprised when he chose to leave the classroom. Why did he do it, if he liked acting and was good at it? Simple, because besides being good on stage, he was still too restless. Although his formal education stopped, his learning did not stop. Guided by different tutors, Spacey would go on to shine at the Shakespeare Festival in Central Park in 1981. His participation in the play Henry IV brought new opportunities to him, and with enthusiasm but also with coolness, he chose his next step. And then another and another. And to be honest, they weren't the wrong steps. They were steps that firmly led him to his Broadway debut with the play Ghosts by Henrik Ibsen. Backstage, and thanks to constant recommendations, Kevin managed to fulfill one of his dreams by meeting one of the actors he admired most, Jack Lemmon. When he met Kevin, Jack didn't hesitate to take him under his wing and continue to nurture him with new knowledge. The results of that didn't take long to appear. Spacey decided that his future was in film, and that's where he headed without hesitation. It's worth clarifying before continuing that even though Spacey would direct his efforts toward the seventh art, he never completely abandoned his first love. In 1991, for instance, he would win the prestigious Tony Award, a theater prize that many aspire to. And now where were we? Ah yes, in the way Kevin Spacey revolutionized the audiovisual world. Such was the journey that Kevin Spacey would make in the world of cinema, that he would end up sharing the screen with the greatest figures of his generation. But not only that, he was a pillar for the newcomers and the honorable heir to the legendary ones. In 1986, he shared sets with Jack Nicholson and Meryl Streep, managing to attract the attention of critics, despite not having the fame of his colleagues. The movie was called Heartburn. It didn't take long for him to receive a lucrative offer to participate in a television series called Wise Guy. For many, acting on television means getting stuck and never returning to the big screen. That didn't happen to him. It became common for directors to show just how versatile he could be. It became common for directors to seek him out with special interest. Overnight, he was in movies alongside Melanie Griffith, Sigourney Weaver, Harrison Ford, Uma Thurman, Dustin Hoffman, Brad Pitt, and Al Pacino, just to name a few examples. His role in the 1989 film My Father is considered his pivotal role, the one that would definitively seal his fate. Then came the 90s, with many small appearances and some pleasant opportunities. In the mid-90s, his participation in The Surprise Factor earned him the New York Critics Award. Everyone predicted that this award was just the first of many, and they weren't wrong. Spacey was described as incomparable. The reason was his work in films like Outbreak 7 and The Usual Suspects. The Oscars then appeared on his nightstand, and not content with just starting to break some records, Spacey made it clear in 1996 that he also had enough sensitivity to sit behind the camera. His directorial debut was with Albino Alligator, a drama that ended up receiving standing ovations at several festivals around the world. In addition to his acting career, in 1997 he founded Trigger Street Productions, an entertainment production company for various media. From then on, he was recruited by Clint Eastwood. He continued working alongside big stars and maintained a low profile. And he completely dazzled everyone with his wonderful performance in the now classic and multi-award winning American Beauty from 1999. 4 days before the premiere of this last movie, Spacey received his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. In February 2003, he was named Artistic Director of the Old Vic Theatre in London, one of the most grandiose and highly regarded English language theatres. Spacey never stopped, and from time to time he managed to make magazine covers thanks to some new professional achievement. And his greatest professional achievement in recent years was once again linked to television, this time thanks to a show that would give people a lot to talk about. House of Cards. House of Cards is an American political drama series. It is an adaptation of the British Broadcasting Corporation miniseries of the same name, and is based on the novel by Michael Dobbs. The first season, which consists of 13 episodes, premiered on February 1, 2013. House of Cards is the story of Frank Underwood, played by Kevin Spacey, a Democrat from South Carolina's 5th Congressional District and the House Majority Whip of the United States House of Representatives. After being passed over for his appointment as Secretary of State, he begins an elaborate plan to reach a position of greater power, helped by his wife, Claire Underwood, an equally impeccable Robin Wright. The series mainly deals with the theme of manipulation, in some way exposing the lack of scruples that exist in the highest spheres of power. His role as Frank reignited admiration for him and brought him to the attention of a younger audience who hadn't noticed him before. He was mesmerized by his ability to express the most intimate human feelings. Spacey took advantage of the series of interviews that the show's success brought him to reinforce the enigmatic aura that always surrounded his personal life. As he himself explained in an interview with the London Evening Standard in 1998, "The less people know about me, the easier it is to convince the audience that I am the character on the screen. This allows the audience to believe that I really am the person I portray." However, in 2017, and despite all his efforts, his private life would be forcibly exposed, and in the worst possible way. Anthony Rapp is an actor who debuted on Broadway at the age of 10. He has performed in the plays 6 Degrees of Separation, You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown, and became famous for playing Mark Cohen in the original cast of Rent, the play that won the Tony and the Pulitzer. His on-screen credits include Adventures in Baby City, Days, Unconfused, and the Paramount Plus series Star Trek Discovery. Rapp was the first man to publicly accuse Spacey of inappropriate sexual conduct in 2017 at the height of the Me Too movement. Subsequently, the accusation turned into a lawsuit thanks to a new law in New York that allows victims of child sexual abuse to seek justice. Years later, let's find out what the actual lawsuit was about. Rapp said he attended a party at Spacey's apartment in Manhattan in 1986 when he was 14 years old and performing in the Broadway play Precious Sons. At the end of the night, Spacey was drunk and allegedly picked up Rapp, placed him on his bed, and lay on top of him. Rapp, he said that Spacey, who was 26 years old at the time, held him tightly, but after a brief struggle he was able to escape and leave the apartment. He testified that he was pinned down underneath him and didn't know what to do. During questioning, the actor said that an article by Lupita Nyong'o about her experience with Harvey Weinstein was the catalyst for him to make his accusations of sexual assault against Spacey public. But during cross-examination, Rapp admitted that he had spoken to a reporter who first published his story about a week before Nyong'o's article. While this contradiction doesn't discredit him, it did soon draw attention to something. Rapp was not able to clearly maintain certain details of his narrative. What was the reason for that? Was he lying? Nerves. Was his memory playing tricks on him? Rapp defended himself by saying that he had grown up with the trauma of that abuse always present. As a theater student, he was forced to watch many of the movies in which his alleged abuser appeared. Every time he did, instead of learning any lesson about playwriting, he felt condemned to relive his cruel past. According to his words, the last Spacey movie he watched was American Beauty, since in that film, Spacey made advances toward a minor, and he felt personally addressed, and the fact was literally unpleasantly familiar to him. In 1993, during the filming of a movie, Rapp and Spacey had crossed paths again. Although there was no interaction, the young man would come out of the experience in a kind of shock. Something similar would happen 6 years later at an awards ceremony. There was no exchange of words there either, but Rapp says that the situation caused a significant setback in his mental and emotional stability. It happened again in 2013 at a benefit concert at the Lincoln Center. Rapp was sitting in a front row seat and unexpectedly, he said, Spacey appeared on stage to host the event. When he saw his abuser under the lights and felt the knot forming in his stomach, was he truly aware of the long-term impact the abuse had had on him? As expected, the accusation was followed by an unprecedented scandal. Back and forth media speculation and many versions that have come out in recent years. The truth is that in 2022 the civil trial was finally able to take place. And what happened in it? Well, it's easier to ask what didn't happen. Once the trial began, Rapp's lawyers called Andrew Holtzman to testify. Andrew's testimony was of vital importance and was held in high regard for a while under the belief that it could turn everything around. Holtzman, who was 68 years old at the time he was called by the court, stated that he was working in his office at the New York Shakespeare Festival Theatre Company in the summer of 1981, when Spacey came in and sat at an empty desk. He said that Spacey didn't say anything when he entered the office, but he remembered meeting him because he had seen his photograph in the program for the play Henry IV, in which Spacey was performing at that time. When the phone call ended, Holtzman stood up and Spacey, without giving him time to react, approached him, grabbed him by the crotch, lifted him up and put him on his desk. According to what he said, Holtzman tried to resist and struggled with the other man. After a few minutes, Spacey, angry and clearly upset, let him go and left the way he had come in. After his statement, Holtzman became a key figure in the case. However, just as quickly as he had emerged, his figure faded into the mist when exposed to the light, not a minor detail. A lawyer for Spacey questioned Holtzman and showed him 6 pages from a program of Enrique IV asking him to please point out which of the boys was the young Spacey who had harassed him. Holtzman, somewhat dazed, couldn't pick out the photo. Once again, doubts emerged. Had the many years that had passed taken a toll on the man's memories? Or was that the conclusive proof that he had never actually met Spacey in the early 80s? And even more importantly, what was Spacey's stance regarding everything that was being said about him? After Rapp made his accusations in 2017, Spacey posted on Twitter that he didn't remember the encounter. "But if I behaved as he says, I owe him the sincerest apology for what could have been deeply inappropriate drunken behavior," he wrote. However, as the weeks went by, his words became more and more hostile and stopped allowing for second interpretations. By early 2018, he limited himself to saying that everything Rapp said simply wasn't true. When it was his turn to testify under oath, this was his version of the events. Spacey said that he had met Rapp and another aspiring actor, John Barrowman, backstage after Spacey's performance on Broadway. He said that he took him to dinner at a nightclub and eventually to his studio, where he flirted with Barrowman, who was 19 years old at that time. He clarified emphatically that he never showed any interest in Rapp. Before other questions fell on him, Spacey took advantage of his minutes on the stand to deliver a monologue in which he talked about his private life. In front of the judges, the actor said that he had never spoken about his sexuality in public before, because a dark childhood with a white supremacist and neo-Nazi father had left him with a deep wound. Spacey said that his father's mind was probably damaged during a period of unemployment after trying to be a creative writer. That, according to him, had resulted in his siblings and him being forced to listen to their father for hours and hours as he lectured and tried to instill his beliefs in them. Because of this, Spacey added that it was then that his hatred of intolerance began. He also mentioned that it was humiliating and terrifying when his friends visited him at home because he was never sure what his father might say to them or to him. Then he went on to recall the years when he had decided to pursue a career as an actor. When his father found out about it, he made sure to harass him every day, angry at the idea that his son might become gay by studying art. Many considered that these statements were nothing more than a dirty move by the actor. A move intended to take the spotlight away from the supposed real victims. Statements that Spacey himself was using to put his own traumas above what was being discussed. Whether or not that was his intention, it is true that in the following days everyone was talking about Kevin's difficult childhood instead of reflecting on his role as a possible abuser. Had it all been coldly calculated? The doubts were put on the table, while Spacey's lawyers gave a concise response to everything Rapp had claimed. Although the accuser claimed to remember that the incident happened in a room in Spacey's apartment on the Upper East Side of Manhattan, Spacey's lawyer, Jennifer Keller, got Rapp to admit that it's possible there wasn't a room and that the actor actually lived in a loft. Next, the defense tried to show that Rapp might be confusing fiction with reality, since for a long time he had played a character who was abused, almost in the same way he claimed to have been abused by Spacey. Spacey's lawyer also pointed out that even if what Rapp said were to be taken as true, the alleged incident, which lasted no more than 30 seconds, did not involve kissing or genital contact. That, in her opinion, weakened the accusation. Spacey's team also suggested that the lawsuit might be due to the resentment of an actor who never succeeded as he had planned and who was clearly seeing his career stall. The precision of the lawyers working with the actor almost turned public opinion in favor of the two-time Oscar winner. But then other victims came forward and the shadows spread above all. Let's go over the different charges that Spacey received in the last 5 years, when his reputation began to be questioned due to criminal behavior, mainly regarding his sexual conduct. In the past, Mexican actor Roberto Cavazos filed a complaint against Spacey in 2017 shortly after Rapp made his own. Cavazos claimed that during the years he had managed the Old Vic Theatre in London, Spacey had harassed him and several other aspiring actors. Despite saying he had evidence, the man never formalized the complaint. Like a waterfall, more complaints began to surface from several employees and former employees who had worked with Spacey on House of Cards, describing incidents in the same abusive tone. Nothing else happened with these accusations either. Another actor, Harry Dreyfuss, son of fellow actor Richard Dreyfuss, was another person who spoke out against Spacey. The matter did not go to trial due to this series of public accusations. In November 2017, Netflix decided to cancel all pending commitments with Spacey. At the same time, the actor checked into a clinic in Arizona to undergo treatment for his sex addiction. He was also removed from a movie that was about to be filmed. Spacey remained completely silent until December 24, 2018. He posted a curious video on his YouTube channel where he appeared as the character Frank Underwood and claimed his supposed innocence. However, the tone of the video and a possible hidden message in it gave people a lot to talk about. Do you remember that we said Spacey's defense accused the rapper of not being able to separate himself from a role he played in his youth? It's curious because the one who would actually decide not to let go of one of his characters would be Kevin Spacey himself. When the accusations against him came out, one of the roles that Spacey was removed from was the one he played in House of Cards, Frank Underwood, whom we've already talked about. To get rid of Frank in the series, the writers decided to kill him off, making it impossible for Spacey to return in any way. Spacey was so fond of this character, as charming as he was despicable, that in 2018 and without the show's production team's permission, he recorded a Christmas spot for his YouTube channel in which he once again played the questionable politician. In that video, and in an indirect way, he refers to the accusations that were being made against him. "If I didn't pay the price for the things we both know I did, I'm certainly not going to pay the price for the things I didn't do," he says at one point while wearing a Santa Claus apron. Why had he done that? Spite, revenge, madness. The video was not well received, and once again the actor was criticized for having very little empathy and respect for what was happening around him. Despite the criticism on Christmas the following year, Spacey once again played the former protagonist of House of Cards in a new video. In it, he suggests to viewers that if someone offends them in any way, they can kill that person, but with kindness. What did that mean? Was he describing the philosophy he had adopted to deal with the situation that had put him in the eye of the storm? Was that his way of killing his detractors with kindness? The one from 2020 was his last video, released in December. In it, Underwood no longer seems present. Spacey says that in recent years, due to the injustices he suffered, many people have approached him to tell him about their problems. The actor dedicates the video to those people and reminds them not to give up, that there is always someone to listen. A suicide prevention hotline number appears in the final seconds. Then, Spacey abandoned the tradition of making Christmas videos. Even so, many people kept looking for similarities between him and his Machiavellian character, Frank Underwood, especially when strange things started happening around the actor. Were there more accusations? In 2019, a masseur filed a lawsuit against him for sexual assault, claiming that he had abused him during a massage session. Although the name of the accuser was not made public, the person died shortly after, and that's why the case never went to trial. Something similar happened a few months later that same year, when a Norwegian writer, Ari Behn, the ex-husband of Princess Martha Louise of Norway, also accused him of sexual assault. Behn committed suicide shortly after the accusation, and there was no trial either. Also in 2019, Spacey faced a new charge of sexual assault, this time from an 18-year-old young man. It happened in 2016 at a bar in Nantucket, in the state of Massachusetts. But a court in that city eventually dismissed the accusation, among other reasons because the young man had lied about his age. During this period of legal scandals, the embattled actor also faced a nurse, Linda Calkin, who accused him of harassment. However, Calkin was arrested shortly afterward for threatening and extorting the actor through letters he sent. The woman paid a fine of thousands of dollars and died in a traffic accident in 2018 in Boston. Quite strange circumstances. Although many conspiracy theories emerged, suggesting that the one behind all these deaths was none other than Kevin Spacey himself. Just like Frank Underwood would have done, the truth is that there was never any real evidence to support that. And that's how our story returns to the beginning. As we mentioned earlier, a New York jury dismissed the accusations against the actor for sexual assault on October 20th, in the 1980s. The jury concluded in record time that Rapp did not show evidence that Spacey had touched his sexual or intimate parts. according to what emerged from the document that the judge submitted to close the case. Likewise, reference was made to the statute of limitations for these charges, and it was explained that they were not covered by New York's child protection law from 2019. But that doesn't mean Kevin Spacey is out of trouble with the law in the future. In Great Britain, Spacey is accused of sexually assaulting 3 men. The oldest accusation dates back to an alleged incident that happened more than a decade ago. Spacey pleaded not guilty in July during a hearing at the Central Criminal Court in London. In turn, officials from the Crown Prosecution Service have authorized additional criminal charges against Kevin Spacey for several sexual assaults on a man. Between 2001 and 2004, the service in charge of the most sensitive cases in the United Kingdom said in a statement, "The new trial is expected to begin in June of 2023. For now, even those who choose to believe in him agree that the actor has recently taken very provocative and questionable attitudes. Others argue that an innocent man would do no less than that. A third group is convinced that the man enjoys absolute cynicism and laughs at his victims with impunity. One way or another, the controversies that Spacey managed to stir up are much deeper than any his creations have ever managed to raise. And his case, to this day, continues to be a topic for debate. Innocent, guilty. What other surprises will the Spacey incident have in store for us in the future? What will be the next twist in that movie of dark undertones that his life has become? And that's the story for today. I hope you found the Kevin Spacey case interesting. If you did, please leave a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. I want to thank all the channel members who are the ones appearing here, because thanks to them we can make these kinds of videos which are often demonetized and hidden from YouTube recommendations. If you want to join the membership and have your name appear here on the side, you just have to click the button that says join below, choose membership number 2, Dark Master, and then go to the community tab. There you'll be able to see all the videos that exist on this channel without censorship. I also invite you to leave suggestions for possible future cases, and with nothing more to say, I say goodbye. My name is Magnus Mephisto, and we'll surely see each other in the next video. Goodbye, goodbye.